in what would have been small group communication 2 or 3 years ago, now I'm sure you guys are in work meetings like this frequently, right? Where the amount you have to communicate everything is built into this really small box, you know? So we have to take advantage of a small area in order to pass on our message, which can be complicated because we don't get some of the normal communication cues that we have from things like body position and posture. So you have to adapt the way you communicate online to fit the kind of camera angle that you have in your broadcast. You know, I see sometimes more, I'd say, better known people have these broadcasts where they're standing at, you know, they're standing up. You can see their whole bodies like traditional television. So then you get a lot of the ways that we can send a message. But a lot of times our reality is this little tiny box, and we have to try to communicate everything that we're going to communicate through it. And an interesting thing is that, like, if we say that's the 5th level of it, the biggest level, the 4th level, which is formal speeches or performance, has something in common. Because when you make a speech to a large group of people, you have to exaggerate some of your behavior in order to send the message to the people who are in the back. You know, Mick Jagger had a great quote years ago. He said that the real difference between acting in a movie and performing on stage is the scale of your facial expressions. He said, if you're on television or if you're in a movie, you can make your performance very small. But when you're performing to an audience of 40,000 people in a football stadium, every movement, every facial expression has to be super exaggerated, right? And there are times in broadcast communication, because we only have this tool to work with, you know, so there are times that we have to exaggerate a little bit. Sometimes it's hard to get gestures in if we're in this space, you know, to get them in and make them look natural is difficult. Makes Portuguese. So then the 3rd level of communication is small group, which most of the time at work we have to do all the time, right? You have to do safety talks, or you have to do a presentation. You have to talk to your team. You have to talk to subordinates, right? So I think that in our work lives, that small group communication, which is relatively intimate, is normal. And even if we think about our family lives, you know, if you're in your social life or with your family, normally it's small group communication. You have a table full of friends, right? Or you're sitting at breakfast with your family. It fits in the small group. Then the kind of 2nd level is when I'm just communicating one-on-one. And I love, if you ever have a moment, I probably should have gotten one of the pictures, but if you look at the way that Barack Obama used intimate space to talk to other world leaders, he was a master of it, a master of using one-on-one communication to get his points across. He was great at gestures, and I shouldn't have opened my window. Bus just passed. But now it's warm here, it's not cold, right? And then finally, the last thing that we're going to focus on is what Andrea just said: intrapersonal communication, communication that's me talking to myself, right? And this can be trivial things, guys, like you're trying to make an analytical decision and you create an internal dialogue, right? But it can also be when we're trying to build up confidence for something, you know, and what you frequently see in the realm of communication is people with, you know, an internal dialogue that's like, I can't do this. This is going to be terrible, right? And when you give yourself that kind of internal dialogue, you're kind of convincing yourself not to do as good of a job as you could, you know. And there's a great I forget which one of our speakers gave this piece of information. I can't remember which one it is, but they said that if you take a heat image of the body, there's no difference between a person who's nervous about something and a person who's excited about it. So theoretically, I'm nervous about the presentation tomorrow, right? But if I can get my self-talk going, I can convince myself that I'm excited for it, because physiologically it's the same. You know, what's happening inside my body is the same. What's different is my perspective. So instead of going, oh, this is going to go terrible, what could go wrong? You think, I'm so excited about this. This is going to be great. I can't wait to have this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to the job interview. Can't wait to make that safety talk or that pitch to a client, you know? And this is a thing that Andrea and I have seen over the years. There's a huge difference in the way that we deal with clients when we are in a good personal space than when we are in a bad personal space. And like, there have been sales that we've lost because, like, instead of rescheduling a client, you talk to them when you're not good, you know? And then you kind of, like, because I'm not well, I pass on this negativity to the person who I'm talking to, because my self thing was bad. Then I pass on the negativity to the person I'm talking to, and nobody's going to buy anything from a salesman that's like, oh, our product's okay. You know?
Oh, yeah, about presentation. If you think all the time, oh, my audience is going to think my presentation is terrible, it's not good. Because people, if you have an audience, they are there to see a good presentation, to listen to good words. Because if you don't have a good presentation, you don't have an audience. People go home. They have more things to do than listening to a bad lecture. So this, I learned this with a public speaking course, because I was very nervous to do my presentation. And the guy told me, look, if you didn't have something interesting to say, we were not going to be here. And then for me now, it's okay to speak in public. There's no problem. If I have people there, it's because they trust me, they are confident, they are going to listen to something interesting. So I don't have any problem anymore about it.
But we have to point out that there are 3 key words in preparing to present an idea: practice, practice, practice. I think we took all my oldest YouTube videos off of our YouTube channel, but if you compared my first YouTube videos, they were just terrible. I was unfocused and not confident. And we got to the point at one point where we would record 5 videos in an afternoon with just one take, right? Just recorded it once and we do 5 in a row. You know, we used to line up a bunch of shirts, and I'd do one video and then change my shirt and then do another video and change my shirt. So it didn't look like it was all recorded on the same day, right? But that's a matter of practice. Being comfortable in front of the camera, being comfortable in front of other people is a matter of practice. And hyping yourself up instead of talking yourself down is a matter of practice. Audrey, you made a really interesting comment earlier about kind of listening to our voices, you know, because if you're spiritually under attack, you know, there are voices that we can't listen to, right? But Paulo Vieira has this great tool that he says that you acknowledge it, you know. I'm nervous. Okay, I'm nervous. Thank you for telling me. right? Bye, right? So, there's moments that we kind of have to tune that bad version of ourselves out, like we can't listen to the down side of ourselves. We have to just focus on that good side of ourselves, the ideal side. And I really like the way Paulo Vieira says it, because he says that within you, imagine that there's 1,000 degrees of you, they're all actually inside of you,
Mhm.
And if you're looking at that side that is kind of like convinced everything's going wrong, then you should just try to imagine yourself at the other end of the spectrum and go, here's where I want to be. I want to be the positive version. I want to be the good version, and kind of adjust your attitude so that you can make yourself more confident instead of sabotaging yourself. The word sabotage was not coming into my head. It was this third plate of feijoada.
It's
All
not
right.
true. He didn't eat feijoada, people. It's not true.
I do love feijoada.
I love feijoada, but I didn't eat it today because it's not good for making a presentation.
It's good for sleeping the whole afternoon.
Yeah. Okay.
All righty.
So, can continue.
While we are presenting this kind of well-known statistic here, there's an important point that Keisha Brewer, remember when we gave the equation for effective communication? Keisha Brewer says that despite what we are going to say, the words you say do matter, right? She's famous for it's